Peace building is probably the most dangerous thing you can do because you go in unarmed into very dangerous situations. These are people who are brave enough to use non-violence to work their way out of a conflict.
Conflict.
Conflict?
Conflict, for me, is rupture.
Things being torn apart.
Conflict.
Conflict.
Akatabanguko in my language.
Conflict means
Fear.
chaos.
Misunderstandings.
Violence.
It's a sign, a warning signal.
It's the inner pain that I go through every single day since December 2007. That is conflict to me.
For a long time, my country, Kenya, was known as the Island of Peace, where we were situated in a region where almost all the other countries, from Somalia to Sudan to Uganda, Mozambique, Burundi, Rwanda, had all at some point descended into violence and conflict. But Kenya was seen as that place where we were unlikely to experience violence and conflict. Unfortunately for us, that changed after the elections in December 2007. One of the things we have to understand in Kenya is that our politics tends to take very, very ethnicized dimensions. Each of the sides actually campaigned on a very, very divisive ethnic platform. So we all voted and waited for the announcement of the results. But after the announcement of the results, the country exploded into violence because the results were disputed by one of the major political parties in Kenya.
It was around 5-ish in the evening, and I was in the house. I was watching. It was funny because I was watching one side. I was watching a movie and on a laptop. The other side, I was watching the elections. I just had screams, woo, one loud woo, and I knew at once things are not the same again. Suddenly, in a span of less than 3 minutes, all I could see was fire, 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 fire. And that night, I could hear gunshots. The camps came against each other, and it was war, total war. After some time in Naivasha, we could see people being slaughtered and their heads were put on the road. The soldiers really now didn't care. They were just out to enforce peace. There was no negotiating. You either had to be peaceful or you go down. It was a bad situation. In a nutshell, I could not believe this was Kenya.
There was this terrible sense of responsibility that, hey, you have been out there in all those other countries. Now your country is burning. What are you called to do at this particular moment? So what did we do? We looked for each other. People that were prominent in the mediation process in Somalia, in the mediation process in Sudan. One of them, Deka Ibrahim, had just been awarded the Alternative Nobel Peace Prize. We came together and formed something we called Concerned Citizens for Peace.
At that time, it took me, I can remember, 7 minutes from the international airport to Serena Hotel because the roads were clear. Nobody was on the street. Everybody was so fearful that the roads were just empty. I arrived at Serena and ambassador told me, "You're chairing a meeting, you're our leader." And I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do? At this time, the very existence of our state, the very existence of our nation was really at a critical moment. The country was disintegrating very fast.
I called Deka and said, "Are you okay, first of all?" And then I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm in the Serena Hotel talking with the two generals and Ambassador Kiplagat." And they were leading this. And then I heard how they were doing it. Use of mobile phones to bring in information, plotting where the hot spots and cold spots were. And I thought, this is really turning into something fantastic by way of an example of how to do it.
the government alone went to build those structures, no way. People were so annoyed with any state institution. They felt that the state security machinery were the ones killing them. So how can you come and talk to us about dialogue? So we are creating dialogue forums, in that space for the dialogue to happen systematically and in an organized manner, but more importantly, non-violently, whether it is verbal violence or emotional violence or physical violence, and then finding in a collaborative way the solutions at that local level, which then becomes the building blocks to enable, also peace to be built at the national level.
Many of the times, I personally have been of the opinion that we have to look for solutions for our own problems. But we had recognized that the likelihood of finding a voice in Kenya at that point that could be listened to by everybody was very, very low. So the idea of then looking for people from outside that could create a possibility of us to sit down and talk to one another was very key for us.
To put it very simply, the way I see it is that they were working from the bottom up. They were working with people on the ground all over the country in the most violent areas, spreading this vast network. And then Kofi Annan arrived and started his work from the top down. And the key was that they were able to lock it together. And as it's transpired and as we've studied it, we realized that it is really a model of how you respond to an eruption of violence, particularly electoral violence.
How can you prove that all those civil society efforts helped to save your country?
Yeah, not easy to answer, but for me what I would say is that given the atmosphere at that time, the animosity, the anger, the poison in people's minds and even our relationships, that for us to have created a platform or a space where we could begin to face one another, for me, that was already an impact.
Hello, my name is Abubakar Idi. I came from Lindi. The post-election violence did affect a lot of my life because one of my friends got shot. He died. His name was Abdallah. He was one of my best friends. Even from that day till now, these are some songs. If I hear those songs, I don't have much to say because Abdallah was one of our best friends.
In the field of peace building, the overwhelming tool of significance is to be present and to have the capacity to listen. And listen so attentively that people are able not just to tell their story, but to tell their story in such a way that when they finish recounting their story, they feel healed.
Those 2 months was so intense that we lost nearly 1,500 lives, Kenyan lives, and almost 300 or up to 500,000 displaced people, and still some of them haven't gone back to their homes. You can physically reconstruct society, but the psychological impact of the violence is so deep that reconstructing the emotions and the psychological side will take us for quite a while.
Kenyans are working hard to heal, and they're using all sorts of strategies to come to terms with that reality. In the flower farms, for example, in Naivasha, the flower owners are facilitating trainings on peaceful coexistence amongst the workers, because the workers are drawn from different ethnic groups. in the country.
We need to live together in peace as one people. Yes. Peace! 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 Peace!
If one goes to a place like Kibera, for example, one will come across young people. They are coming together and they are saying, no, this should never happen in our neighborhood.
Carolina for Kibera is an organization that was formed in 2001. We have sports for boys and sports for girls, and it has actually played an important role in facilitating dialogue. For every team that participates within our sports program must be ethnically mixed. The amazing thing that we witnessed during the post-election violence is actually young people who are actually rescuing their friends.
Carolina for Kibera help us in a way that they form tournaments whereby we combine all the tribes together, we come together, play together, then we have a discussion group whereby each and every individual is given a time to discuss what he or she feels, then we are taught about the different values of living together and staying together as a family. Yeah.
The other strategy that is being used to a very significant degree is dance, as a way again of building trust and tolerance and understanding.
Surely it is the politicians who have divided these people, and even after they have divided them, they have never come back to tell them, no, this was wrong. And now we have achieved the active peace. As you can see them dancing together, laughing together, cracking jokes together. But before, nobody could talk with one another. Yeah, because if you see him, you can just divert and go the other way, just to avoid saying hi. But today, they are all together. And I'm sure even you didn't know who is a Samburu, you didn't know who was a Luo, you didn't know even who was a Kikuyu. They were all here, but you didn't know them. They were all here. So now we are at the top, and we're expecting this will continue. It's our hope and wish.
For most of us, the violence was a terrible moment in our history. But it was also an opportunity to talk about poverty, to talk about the glaring gap between the propertied and the propertyless. It gives us an opportunity to talk about the electoral system. Do we want an electoral system where it's winner take all? Or do we want an electoral system where everybody feels they are winners?
We have to remember the signing of the agreement is only the beginning. It's a framework, actually, for how we resolve the deeper-seated issues. And if we all go home believing that because we have signed an agreement, we have resolved the issues, then we are actually setting the stage for the next cycle of the violence.
So, we are not at peace. It will come again if care is not taken, if the issues are not solved. That's my feeling as a peace builder. We really need to address the issues for us to stay in peace here in Africa.
And in fact, Kenya, if we get it right, could emerge stronger, more powerful, more prosperous than it was before the violence.
And we will will tell people
na tutaambia watu
in other parts of the world
katika sehemu zingine za dunia
what we have learned from you in Kenya.
kile tumesoma kutoka kwenu hapa Kenya.
30 years ago, you couldn't point to places and say, look, the conflict transformation community has made a difference. But today, you can point to country after country after country where something much worse would have happened if it hadn't been for this community. In Kenya, it could have been a major, full-blown genocide that took hundreds of thousands of lives. Instead, it stopped at 1,500. Surprised everybody. So we can look at many, many cases like that, and they prove this approach works. This approach should be invested in. And if you meet these people, if you meet this community, you have absolutely no doubt they have the tools and the skills for preventing conflict.
Peace?
Peace.
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 Peace for me is silence.
Justice.
Power sharing.
Coexistence.
Is a collective effort.
It's an active concept. Peace is not passive.
Obsinje in my language.
It's what makes me feel I belong.
To be able to sleep. That for me is peace.